One way to increase the probability that things will unfold for you properly is to not lie. Just stop lying. Stop saying things you believe to be untrue. Stop doing things you know to be wrong. Just start with that. You'll get closer and closer to the truth. And the truth is the adventure of life. That's the advantage to the truth. You have the world on your side. Because if you're lying about things, you're opposing reality. Who are you? Who are you to oppose reality? Good luck. One way to increase the probability of things will happen.
These guys are amazing.
Very succinctly said. Good enough.
These guys are amazing. Do a big movie.
I know what you mean.
I don't think God will judge you.
Okay, here we go. We've covered a lot of that. Again, I can't stress enough the idea of chaos and order. God loves order. We do best in order. More chaotic our lives become, more chaotic we make our lives, then the less possibility that we have that we're going to grow into the full potential that we have. So, but let's make this a little bit more practical. In the postmodern world, because they've all done away with binaries, right? There's nothing that oppose each other like right and wrong, good and bad, male and female, and on and on and on. Now you, particularly, are addressed with an issue of what happens in the gender issue when, for example, a person comes up to you and says, I am a cat. Okay? I believe I'm a cat. So I want you to address me as a cat. What do you do? Do you say, well, yeah, I think you could be a cat? Or you say, I don't want to mean to be offensive, but from my perspective, you look an awful lot like a human being. Very, very little resemblance to what I understand a cat to be. And so, with all due respect, I think I would still refer to you as a human being. Mm-hmm. Is that right or is that wrong? What do you think? I don't know. Because you're going to have to face this a lot. I mean, this is your world. So what do you think? How do you do it?
I think first thing you do is you love them.
Yes.
Yeah. Be kind. Be kind.
I think in this situation it's very important to see what has God given you as a gift towards these people. Have God given you a specific gift to be on it, or clear, or kind of be very truth to the truth, or do God wants to kind of just care and hug that person?
Hug that cat.
Do we see who God has what God has put in you, and He can use all of us different in this situation.
And the fact is, however, we're distorting reality a little bit, aren't we? In terms of what we understand cats to be and humans. And
just as a navigating principle to any conversation, seek to understand, listen, be open, as much as it may seem ridiculous. If you approach something with that desire to understand, that's usually received well, and that will allow and open doors for you to share, for you to express, and to also just have relationship as opposed to other things. And ultimately I think that could go more well than other alternatives.
yeah. What about the idea that truth can and is oftentimes offensive?
Yeah.
Truth is offensive.
Truth hurts.
And like I said, I think Jesus, in telling the truth, he offended a lot of people. They hated him. The other thing you have to keep in mind, and this is kind of the backstory of this, so it's important for you to know. The idea of political correctness is basically, you know, you want to be kind to people and you don't want to offend them. So you have to be very careful about your speech. As a matter of fact, you have to be so careful that the government now, at least in the United States, the government can control and punish you if you don't use the proper terms in terms of speech. So when I first heard that, I'll get to you just a second. When I first heard that, I thought, again, my crazy mind, I thought, where does political correctness, where does that come from? What is that? So, you know, I jumped online and started, oh, that was interesting. Guess where it started? In Russia. During the time of Lenin and then Stalin, they introduced political correctness, which meant that the government would constrain what terms you could use. In other words, nothing critical, you know, nothing this, and trust me, Lenin and Stalin were not worried about offending people, okay? They murdered millions, so offending people is not on their agenda. But they did know, for them to introduce the Marxist philosophy, they had to set it up by controlled speech, okay? They knew that, and they did it. And then it kind of disappeared for a while, and bingo, in the late 70s and early 80s, political correctness showed up again in our Western culture. And it was under the guise of, we don't, you know, we need to be, not everybody's the same, we need to be inclusive. We don't want to offend people, and so we have to make sure that we call them by the proper terms. And who determines the proper terms? The government. And so the government now says, this is what you have to call people. And at first it was a suggestion, at least now in America, it's a law. Hate speech. And if you don't conform to government prerequisites of what to say and what not to say, you can be, and many have been, arrested. The FBI will come and arrest you for hate speech. If you're a parent that goes to a school meeting, talking to the teachers and principals, saying, I oppose you teaching my 6-year-old about transgender possibilities, without informing the parent. Guess who gets arrested? The parent for hate speech against the government. And so it's, I mean, guys, I am an optimist, generally speaking, but I'm very concerned in America today. The things that are coming down, the things that are coming out are very challenging. And so you guys are going to be right in the middle of this. For example, here's another one. And this is a, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
It's true, the truth can hurt, but never use the truth to hurt.
Right. Yeah.
Always love the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that happens a lot. It's a lot. Christians do still hurt people with the truth.
Never hurt, yeah, that never helps, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, and the other thing you have to remember is the definition of love, agape love, is to choose the highest good for God, others, and yourself. So what's the highest good for others? Tell them a lie or tell them the truth? It's always to tell them the truth, or at least the truth as you know it, let's put it that way. One other thing, and then we'll get to you. Now this is a tricky one. The gender issue, right? And, now is that just in the States or is that in Europe as well? You guys know Europe is gender issue? To some degree, okay. In the United States now it's a big deal. Because you can have, they say, gender identification. And it's not, their definitions are wrong. But they've commingled it so you don't know the difference unless you really dig in. So, by definition, let's talk about male, female. by definition, from a biological, scientific, objective definition of males and females, is male and female is determined by the chromosome that the male parent contributes. Males have the XY sex chromosome, females have double X sex chromosome. The male can contribute X or Y chromosome, while the female must contribute one of the X chromosomes. So, all that to say that is biologically, you take it and put it into the laboratory, you look at the chromosomal makeup, and one's a male and one's a female. However, every once in a while, I think it's like 1 in a million times, there will be a chromosomal abnormality where a person will be born, a child will be born with both sexes. They're both male and female. And so a parent will decide, do you want a boy or girl, and they do the necessary surgery, and that's happens. Very rare, but it does happen on occasion. Primarily though, sex, S-E-X, you've heard of it, sex is, by definition, male and female. Males have a certain plumbing and women have a certain plumbing, and that's what defines the differences. Now, where we get into trouble is gender. So, here's the definition of gender. So gender refers to the characteristics of men, women, boys, and girls that is socially constructed. Okay, so it's a social construct. This includes norms, behaviors, roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as relationships. As a social construct, gender varies in society and can change over time and can be multiples, many genders. But it has nothing to do with sex. This is the thing. And what they've done is they've commingled this now. And when they talk about gender identity, they're actually also referring to sex identity. Now, because gender can be multiples, it can be an infinite number of genders, it's simply what are the social expectations of females and what are the social expectations of males. That determines gender. It has nothing to do with scientific, biological data. What it has to do is, how do we expect women to have to perform or responsibilities or things like that? Oftentimes, at least in the past, it's been women have had the responsibility for raising children, bearing and raising children, up to a certain point, like 30. And then men, biological men, sexual men, have, other than their responsibilities in culture and society, have been to do other things. You know, provide for the family, protect the family, you know, go off and fight wars and all that kind of stuff. And that changes from every culture to every culture, right? So that's not a problem. However, when you blend the two now and you mix up gender and culture as the same thing, I mean gender and sex as the same thing, that's the problem. Because then, you know, in the postmodern world, they've torn down all the social constructs. They haven't told you they've torn this one down too, and now they're saying there's no difference. There is no difference between male and female. Male and female is a social construct. No, it is a biological fact. Gender is a social construct. Fair enough. Yes, it is. It can be lots of, you know, multiple, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's not the sex. It's the gender. And so the great debate now, and it's in the, I mean, we're facing it big time in the United States, for example. We are now allowing biological males to participate in female sport activities on the same level. And so I just read an article the other day, this girl who was a national champion swimmer, and she's probably, you know, she's about this tall, and, you know, maybe weighs, I don't know, 120 pounds, or, you know, 10 kilos, 40, I don't know, somewhere around there, something like that. But anyway, she's standing there ready to race, and here's a guy standing next to her who's like 6'4", masculine guy with the big bulge still, you know. Masculine guy up here, hairy arms, you know, and he's a girl. He thinks, you know, he identifies as a girl. So guess who wins? The guy. The girl guy. The girly man, I guess. Yes. Okay. So, it's getting complicated, guys, and you are coming up in the midst of this, so you need to have the understanding. And this is where you have always question, always question everything. Don't take anything for granted. Do your research. And again, it took me about 25 minutes, 30 minutes to figure this out, because I said, well, that's sex. What does gender mean? And when I looked up gender, I thought, wow, that's not sex. That's something completely different. But you don't hear that from your teachers in school. You don't hear that thing. It's all the same, and it's not. I even had this conversation with a doctor, and he didn't know the difference, which was staggering to me, that he argued for gender and sex being the same thing, and it is not the same thing. So,